right, my seventh graders, let's go knock this out. I'm going to do 3-4. It's to simplify the expression. I got to distribute my property, which means I'm going to take 8 and multiply it to everything in the parentheses. 8 times k is 8k. And 8 times -5 is -40. So my answer is 8k minus 40. Now I'm going to number 3. First thing I'm going to do, I think I'm going to rewrite this over here to give me some room to work. 3g minus 6 minus 5g. All right, the first thing I need to do following PEMDAS is look in my parentheses for like terms. I see that 3g and -5g both end in g. Okay, so I'm going to take my highlighter to show that these are like terms. All right, and when I combine them, remember, since I have different signs, I'm going to take the big number minus the small number. They're both g's here. And that gives me my answer, but then I have to keep the sign of the bigger number. So now I can rewrite this to -1/4. It's going to get multiplied to -2g minus 6. All right, now I'm going to put -2g over 1, because now I have a 2 on the top and a 4 on the bottom. I know 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So now I have -1 times -1. That's going to be a positive 1. The negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times 1 is 1. I also have 2 times 1 on the bottom. So this is going to be 1/2 g. Now I got to go ahead and put this back to 1/4. Because that's what it was originally. And now I'm going to put -6 over 1. Now 6 and 4, both them also can be divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2, that's going to give me 3. And now I have -1 times -3. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 1 times 3 is 3. I also have 2 times 1 down here, which is 2. I cannot combine these like terms. So my answer, I believe, is going to be 1/2 g plus 3/2. 3/2 can be turned to 1 and 1/2 when I turn that improper fraction into a mixed number. All right, next I got number 5. It says find the difference. So I'm subtracting, or at least there's a subtraction sign in between the numbers. When I take this, I realize that I have 2 negatives. When my signs are the same, I find the sum. So I'm going to take 5.6 and add it to 4.7. 6 plus 7 is 13. I'll carry the 1. And 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 5 is 10. And my decimal point is right there. Since they're both negative, it also means my answer will be negative. So -10.3 should be my answer. All right, next I'm going to do number 7. It says evaluate the expression when x is 4, y is -6, and z is -3, which means I'm going to take this y and turn it to -6. This is divided by, and z is -3. I could just as easily turn this to a fraction and say this is equal to -6 over -3. Well, I know a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So this answer is 2. Let's go to number 9. It says this time 3x, so this is going to be 3 times 4 minus 2y, which is 2 times -6. That's going to be over z. Z is -3. All right, I know that 3 times 4 is 12. And -2 times -6, that's a positive 12. And that's, I know that because a negative times a negative is a positive, and 2 times 6 is 12. And that's going to be all over a negative 3. Well, no, 12 plus 12 is going to be 24. Now I have 24 divided by negative 3. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So number 9 should be negative 8. All right, next I'm going to number 11. It says write an equation modeled by the number, line, or algebra tiles. Okay, so number 11 is the algebra tiles. Explain how you can use the model to solve an equation. Then find the solution. Well, if I do this, I remember that greens mean my x. So I have a positive 3x, then a minus 1, 2, 3, 4, so minus 4. And that's going to equal a positive 2. Now, in order to solve this, I would go ahead and remember I want x by itself. So I'm going to add 4 to this side to get rid of the negative 4, which means I have to add 4 to this side. 2 plus 4 is 6. Now I have 3x equals 6. I know that I'm multiplying 3 to x. The only way to get rid of that 3 is to divide it away. Whatever I divide from one side, I divide from the other. Well, 3 divided by 3 is 1, so I have 1x left over. 6 divided by 3 is 2. That would mean that x equals 2. All right, let's head down here to number 13. Solve the equation, check your solution. All right, I'm going to solve this. Remember, I want a by itself, so I'm going to do the opposite of negative 6, which is adding 6. That's the only way to get rid of negative 6. But remember, this is like a big scale, right? Whatever I do to one side to keep it balanced out, I have to do the other side. So I'm going to have to add 6 over here. 13 plus 6, that's 19. And that means a has to be equal to 19. All right, I'm going to go to number 15. I see that x is adding 4 to equal negative 14. Again, I want to get my variable by itself. All the letters on one side, numbers on the other. The only way to get rid of a positive 4 is to combine it with a negative 4. And again, whatever I add to one side of the equal sign, I add to the other. Well, both my signs are the same, so I find the sum. This will be negative 18, because 14 plus 4 is 18, and they're both negative. So x is going to be equal to negative 18. All right, I'm over at number 17 now. I want to get c by itself. Once again, I'm subtracting 7.6, so I'm going to add 7.6. Whatever I add to one side, I add to the other. I got c by itself. And now I see my signs are different. They're different. I take the big number, 7.6. I minus the small number, which is 4. And I keep the sign of the big number, that's a positive. So I have to add now. I'm going to line up my decimals. This would be 11.6. And let's see, number 19. Oh, wait a second. I just realized a boo-boo I did here. My signs are different. So I find the difference. I'm going to subtract 4 from 7.6. I apologize for that. I added instead of subtracted, didn't I? All right, so that means this would be 3.6. And I keep the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number was positive. So this answer should not be 11.6. It should, in fact, be 3.6. All right, let's go to number 19 now. I got 1/2 equals q plus 2/3. The only way to get rid of adding 2/3 is to subtract 2/3. And whatever I subtract from one side, I subtract from the other. Now I see that q is equal to these two. This was a negative sign. This one's positive. So I have to subtract 2/3 from 1/2. That's going to be a little hard, but let's see. I know I need a common denominator, so I'm going to multiply this to 2 over 2. All right? I'm going to give myself a little room to work here. I'm also going to have to multiply this to 3 over 3. I can rewrite this. This is going to give me, wow. Okay, so this is going to be 3 over 6. And this is going to be minus 4 over 6. All right. When my signs are different, I find the difference. I take the big number minus the small number. This is going to equal a negative 1 over 6. So I take the big number minus the small number, and I keep the sign of the big number. All right. And that means that will equal negative 1, 6 will equal Q. All right, it's time to move on. Let's see here. And I don't want that to look like a 9, so let's make it a Q. Number 21, I've got negative 9.3 equals D minus 3.4. I'm going to have to add 3.4 to get rid of it. Whatever I add to one side, I add to the other. My signs are different, so I find the difference. I'm going to take the big number, 9.3, minus the small number, 3.4. This will give me, well, if I'm subtracting, I have to borrow one. This would be a 9. My decimal comes down. 8 minus 3 is 5. And I keep the sign of the big number. The big number was 9, so that's a negative 9. This would be a negative 5.9. So I'm taking number 21 is going to be x equals, or d equals, negative 5.9. I'm going on to number 23. I got to get x by itself, so I'm going to do the opposite of subtracting 5 over 2, and that's adding 5 over 2. Whatever I add to one side, I add to the other. X is alone now. My signs are different, so I'll find the difference. I'm going to take this big number minus the small number. And remember to fill in zeros, okay, where I'm not going to subtract anything from. 3 minus 0 is 3. 7 minus 2 is 5. 8 minus 5 is 3. And the 1 comes down. And I keep the sign of the big number. So this would be a negative 13.5. All right, let's work at number 25 next. When I do this, I realize I'm going to have to add 4 over 5 to this side to get rid of a negative 4 over 5, which means I'm going to have to add 4 over 5 to this side. All right. Let's see. And since I'm adding here, well, this is a positive 4 over 5 minus 2 and 1 4. I'm going to have to go around the world to turn this into an improper fraction first. So now I'm going to get, this is 4 over 5. This is 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. This is minus 9 over 4 will equal r. I need common denominators, so I'm going to multiply this to 5 over 5. And I'm going to multiply this to 4 over 4. Well, I know since I got a 4 on the top and bottom, they're both divisible by 4. Give me 1. So this first one here can be 4 times 1, which is 4. And let's see, 1 times 5, which is 5. Then we're going to subtract, let's see here. Um, well, we've got 9 times 5 is 45. And I just realized we can't do this over here. We wanted a denominator of 20. So I'm going to have to backtrack a little bit here. So this is 4 times 4, which is 16. And 4 times 5, which is 20. Now I have to minus, this was 5 times 9, which is 45. And 4 times 5, which is 20. That's going to equal R. Well, I got two different signs, so I take the big number minus the small number. This will give me a 9. I had to borrow 1. And 3 minus 1 is going to be 2. So this is going to be negative, I'm sorry, this was going to be 29. We keep the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number was 45, so negative 29 over 20 equals R. And 20 goes into that one time, so this would be negative 1, and 9 over 20 is going to equal R. All right, let's move on to the next one. I got number 27. Your friend solves the equation x plus 8 equals negative 10. Is your friend correct? He says to get rid of positive 8, I'll subtract 8, which means I subtract 8 over here. Negative 10 and negative 8 make negative 18. And that's exactly how we do this, because when my signs are the same, I find the sum. So x is equal to negative 18. Yes, your friend did this correct. And I think I can write here for a reason. We're going to use the addition quality. No, addition property of equality. Equality, okay, to isolate x. All right, let's go down to number 29 now. Solve the equation, check your answer. Well, over here I'm multiplying and dividing, okay? So I see over here that I'm taking negative 5 and multiplying it to t. The only way to get rid of multiplying by negative 5 is to divide by negative 5. And whatever I divide from one side, I divide from the other. Negative times a negative is a positive, and 45 divided by 9 is going to equal 9. Or excuse me, 45 divided by 5 equals 9. So the answer to 29 is 9, positive 9. Number 31 shows that I am dividing by negative 3. The only way that I can go ahead and get rid of that is to multiply by negative 3. So I'm going to multiply this by negative 3 over 1. And remember, if we multiply this, we got 3 over 3. That cancels out. That leaves k by itself. But if I multiply by 3 over here, I've got to multiply by 3 over here. And we just say it was a negative 3 we're multiplying by. Well, 9 times a negative 3 will give me negative 27. Okay, we're going to number 33. I'm multiplying 8 to t, which means I'm going to divide 8 That gets t by itself. It means I have to divide this side by 8. A negative divided by a positive is a negative number. And 32 divided by 8 is 4. So this is a negative 4. Number 35, I see that I am dividing by 4, negative 4. So I'm going to multiply by negative 4. This is going to leave me b by itself, because my 4's cancel out, and a negative times a negative is a positive. Next, remember this is the letter B. Whatever I multiply to one side, which was negative 4, I have to multiply to the other side. Negative times a negative is a positive, and 4 times 10, that's 40. All right, next is number 37. I see that I'm multiplying 8 to d. That means I've got to divide by 8 to get rid of it. That gives me d by itself. Whatever I divide from one side, I divide from the other side. Negative 72 divided by 8 is going to be a negative divided by a positive. That's a negative. 72 divided by 8 is 9. So this should be negative 9. All right, number 39 is next. I'm multiplying by negative 0.6. I'm going to rewrite this problem over here and give me a little room to work. So I'm going to need to divide by 0.6, negative 0.6, to get rid of it, leaving p by itself. But whatever I divide from one side, I have to divide from the other. So negative 0.6. Now I'm going to remember every fraction is a division problem. So I'm going to put this in my calculator. What is 14.4 divided by 0.6? That's going to give me 24. So this is going to be 24. Now, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and since these numbers equal 24, p is equal to 24. All right, so that would have been this one here. P is equal to 24. All right, let's look at number 41. On 41, I am multiplying by negative 2 over 5. So to get rid of it, I'm going to multiply by negative 5 over 2. That's the opposite. Notice I don't go with the opposite sign. I keep it negative. Now, a negative times a negative is a positive. My 5's cancel out, my 2's cancel out, leaving me with C. Remember, whatever I multiply to one side, I have to multiply to the other. So I'm going to multiply this to negative 5 over 2. All right. I'm going to rewrite this over here because it's getting kind of messy. This is saying negative 5 over 2 is getting multiplied to 8. I can put that as 8 over 1. I know 2 and 8 can be reduced. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now, negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. And 1 times 1 is 1. Anything over 1 is itself, so that tells me that negative 20 is equal to C. Last one here says 26 equals negative 8 over 5y. I'm going to rewrite this to give me some more room. I'll put it over here. 26 is equal to negative 8 over 5 times y. I'm going to multiply this to negative 5 over 8. That's the inverse. All right. The 8's cancel out, the 5's cancel out, negative times a negative is a positive, so I got y left over. But whatever I multiply to one side, I have to multiply the other. So I'm going to multiply negative 5 over 8 to number 20 to 26. Put 26 over 1. I know 8 and 26 both have 2 in it. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 26 divided by 2 is 13. Now I've got a negative 5 times 13. That gives me 65. So a negative times a positive will be a negative 65. Okay, and then I've got 4 times 1, which is 4. I have to take 65 and divide it by 4 in order to find out what my mixed number is going to be. So 65 divided by 4, that's going to give me 16.25. So that's going to equal negative 16 and 1/4. All right, I don't see any others for me to do. That means that's the last of them. You guys have the rest. You only have to work up to number 40, so you only have to go up to 39. Remember, we made that deal. Anyone that got any of these right, then good for you. I'll see you for grading in class, and have a great night.